Hi all, good afternoon. I'm Aseem Ahuja and very welcome for the last session that we have today for the risky business organized by Turnkey Consulting. In this session, we'll be talking about calm seas of business change during your S4 HANA transformation and how risk and compliance are imperative for those. And today I'm joined by Dominic Henry, Director at Range Consulting. Hi, Dominic.
Hi
Dominic,
there,
if you want to.
Aseem, and
Yeah.
thank you very thank you very much, Aseem. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be able to present today with Turnkey Consulting at the Risky Business Conference. So thank you very much for having me. I'm the Director of Range Consulting, and we are all about helping businesses try and ease their journey to SAP S/4HANA. And today, I'm excited to be talking about the calm seas of business change in the context of controls and compliance. So I will talk more about myself when we get into the main presentation, Aseem. So I'd like to keep some of that for there. But thank you very much for having me.
Thanks a lot, Dominic. And so in this session, we'll be primarily speaking in terms of what risk and controls do we require on the S/4HANA implementation, and how do we embed business change in any transformation that or any change program that organization undergoes. So there has to be internal buy-in, collaboration, and every user goes through their own adoption journey, where starting from the awareness and to the final ownership of that. And for this, we have Dominic Henry, who would be sharing a lot of his experiences. And I'll hand over to you, Dominic, for the session. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Aseem, and good afternoon, everyone. As I said, I work for Range Consulting. I'm working full-time at the moment for a company that's implementing SAP S/4HANA on a full-time contract to help them through that journey. And I'm going to talk about the calm seas of business change, navigating risk and controls and compliance on your journey to SAP S/4HANA. So really, this starts with the fact that I'm not by background an SAP guy. I wasn't a security guy. I was actually quite happily working in innovation and supply chain in advanced materials, metallic materials for aerospace and automotive and biomedical. And you can see me in my past life for over a decade working throughout the world on interesting innovation and supply chain projects for the use of metallic alloys in engineering applications. But then in 2017, the managing director of the company I worked for came to see me to say that they were going to be doing an implementation of SAP and that I'd been seen as a potential safe pair of hands. So my first question was, SAP, what's that about? So I started asking around my friendship group, and I started getting the jokes coming through from my friends that actually one of them works for Microsoft Dynamics and said, well, you do know SAP stands for Stops All Production. So it wasn't very helpful and it was a bit daunting, but I really got bogged down in this because of my academic background, my PhD that had taken me through the material science journey. It was that I lent on to actually get up to speed with ERP and how to go about these. And I'll talk about the first project that I did and now where I am in terms of the follow-up projects. And then subsequently managed to get the qualifications to support this from the SAP SAP Activate Project Manager through to the APM, PMQ qualifications, Prince obviously, and then change management as well to complement it. But really, I'm going to start with the journey that I took back in late 2017 when I was asked to get involved to bring two businesses together. So two business units were being combined, and we looked to do a UK and US greenfield implementation of SAP S/4HANA. It was the 1809 version. We put it in the Microsoft Azure cloud, so we had lots of conversations and discussions and decisions to make around AWS versus Azure versus Google. And then we were also listed on the New York Stock Exchange, so we had to battle all the stringent spotlights of Sarbanes-Oxley. And ultimately, it was a great success, but it was a great journey as well in terms of that challenge and really coming together as a unit to succeed. So November 2017 was when we started, or I started this journey. It was about doing the as-is process mapping with the business. It was about understanding the business case and requirements and writing that justification for sign-off from the exec. Then having big discussions about greenfield versus brownfield. We already had another sister company with ECC6, but we decided we were going to go greenfield and we went our way. And then it was the cloud and the system integrator selection that we had to carry out following that. And then in October 2018, I'm pleased to say that we kicked off the actual implementation with our selected partner, and we did SAP Activate. We went live in the following October. And then throughout that, we obviously had a lot of the IT general controls and the SOX spotlights on us. And in October 2019, we entered hypercare and then transitioned to business as usual. And I, for those following 15 months after go live, worked as the IT audit manager and SAP application manager for the company before leaving to start Range Consulting. And Range really came from this learning from the past, but also thinking of the future and all that valuable work of being thrown in at the deep end and realizing that, you know, potentially there's many other companies that go through that same path, many other project managers that have to navigate the same journey. So at Range, we imagine a world where teams on challenging projects do feel equipped and capable and supported to tackle the challenges ahead with calm, clarity and confidence. So we all know that with the digital transformation, we're not just managing a technology project, you're managing business change. So we look to help business project leaders and teams navigate that complex so that they can avoid overwhelm, gain clarity and stay in control. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about, you know, some of the academic side of what makes these projects successful. And we're going to go back to critical success factors. So critical success factors, many people talk about, it actually stemmed from a late 1970s, 1979 Harvard Business Review article about how chief executives like to be able to have a concise and succinct view on what they needed to know. And this was really where CSFs, or critical success factors, really started to find their footing. And you can see that there's then been subsequently decades of research in this area. So for ERP projects, it goes back for, you know, 30 years of people's views, academic views of what makes these programs successful. You can see here, I've just done a selection of some of that academic literature out there about, you know, what are the critical success factors around ERP projects and implementations, and doing an analysis of the main themes that come out here. You can see that some things like support for the project, top management support, having a good sponsor, dedicated resource and skills, through to trust and selection of partners, having a good overall effective project management, investing in change management. There's all sorts of these critical success factors that really need to be brought in to run these projects. But one of the interesting things is when you looked at that kind of generation of literature and the views in the academic journals about critical success factors, an emerging theme that was coming through in the sort of 20s is security and compliance. So it's a nice sort of fit with what we're talking about on the Risky Business Conference. However, even with that whole body of literature about what makes a successful project, an ERP project, successful, we still have a problem with ERP project failures, and quite infamous ones that end up in quite nasty court battles and difficulties and challenges. And it's not just historic. Sadly, it does go through some famous ones from the 90s into the 2000s, and then even up to more recent days. And again, keeping with the risky business approach here, one of the interesting ones is the one for Revlon in 2018 that went to court, went to litigation, one of the findings in that was around the design and maintenance of effective controls. So it shows how that emergent theme of critical success factors is also mirrored in some of the things that we see in failure case studies as well. But really, it doesn't have to be like this. I feel passionately that there is an alternative way to do this. So in a world where ERP and a world of ERP, the technology really is proven. The partners have got years of experience, but always, or quite often, the business team are new to it. So it's not really a level playing field. Those business team members that have been seconded or put in these projects, they're working with consultant partners where there might not always be a fully transparent airing of the lessons from failure, because, why would there be? So they're not really learning from failure on the business side. They're going with, their sort of best efforts, but it's not level. So we aim to be a bridge between that business and consulting world. And I believe that we can actually increase the chance of success by empowering and enabling that business side team. So how do we do that? Well, really, it's about understanding that when you're implementing new technologies and digital transformation, that time is precious, and it's also quite complex. There's a lot of different factors. We've seen the CSFs coming in, we've seen lessons from failure. So the idea here is the calm sees a business change is a human-focused and holistic approach to achieving these transformations and strategic change. The framework has been developed and based on best practices from project, program, and change management, from the lessons from failures you've seen from the case study reviews, and also from that body of work on critical success factors. And it's all underpinned by real lived experience. So I'm going to just give a brief overview of what the calm Cs are, and then we'll get into an example for security and compliance. So clarity, the first pillar, is all about business alignment and readiness. So this is about knowing why you're doing it, where you're starting from, and ensuring that the organization's strategic goals are actually aligned and the executive are aligned with the project objectives. It should be justified and clear as to why it's happening. So getting clear on where you are today and understanding where you want to be. And it's at that point you then engage the technology partner. You don't bring them in and let them tell you what you want first. You develop that strong and justified case for change. Control, this is around project governance, risk, assurance, and compliance. So this is about making sure that you take control of your own project. You put in robust governance frameworks so that you can remain confident that things stay on track. You take a proactive approach to identify and mitigate risks before they become issues. And then you look to actually turn that necessity into value by leveraging systems that manage security and controls to ensure that one's time-consuming fundamental becomes actually an efficient source of assurance. And competence, this is about making sure you've got inspiring leadership, sponsorship, and project teams. We've all heard the sort of famous quote that availability is not a skill. So make sure that you've got the right people in place, especially an exceptional sponsor and a PM who is a project leader, not just a Gantt chart user. They've got some emotional intelligence. And then compassion. This is around the part of the project which is business adoption and organizational change. And it's about making sure that you treat people with respect and understanding that change is hard. It's differences to their jobs on what they've been used to. So you need to invest time and energy into that organizational change. Collaboration is around agile, resilient, and synergistic teams. So this is about realizing that the best chance of success comes from having that team who work well together, they trust each other, and they're happy as a team. So through developing trust and agile ways of working and synergistic problem solving, you look to create an environment that you can manage conflict and you can actually work even better. And then finally, confidence. This is quite a sort of popular thing now, but really this is about high performance and well-being. We've got to remember that people are not machines. So to be our best and deliver, we need the right support and focus to fire on all cylinders. So through these high performance habits and practical well-being, you can look to avoid overwhelm, stay in control, and reduce the potential for burnout. And I know from personal experience, what got me through that first implementation of SAP S/4HANA for a New York Stock Exchange listed business was being able to use things like meditation and mindfulness on my lunch breaks and resetting for the afternoon. So there's some really good, valuable stuff in that confidence pillar, but we're not going to cover that today. What I'm going to talk about, though, is applying the calm seas in a real business environment. So my current circumstances, the project is for a fast-growing, young, dynamic tech company. It's got sites in the UK and the US, and it's listed on the NASDAQ. So we don't get away from our Sarbanes-Oxley. We've got a greenfield implementation of S/4HANA 2020. We're doing finance. We've got procure to pay. We've got extended warehouse management. We've got Ariba. We've got SAP Analytics Cloud. So it's a busy little project. And then SOX. So I'm sure everyone in the audience is aware of SOX. Now, this was introduced by a couple of senators, Sarbanes and Oxley, in the US back in 2002. And it's all about avoiding corporate failures and fraud that have previously led to financial losses. So it's about making sure that the investors are able to invest confidently in companies and believe what's on their balance sheets and financial statements. So the company we're at must comply with SOX so that we control and reduce the risk of financial misstatement. The driver for what we're doing on the control side is ensuring that we are compliant during the implementation and that when we go live, we're able to meet our compliance controls from day one. So it's about developing and implementing controls that can be maintained by the business once the project is finished. And also, we want to avoid costly and time-consuming rework. So this is the real driver. You could, move through these projects, get to the point of failure, and then go, we've got to remediate some of this. But actually getting it proactively involved and part of the project going forward is the key thing to do. So we want to avoid rework, remediation, and we want to reduce that potential detrimental impact of failure. So a company having to disclose material weakness through non-compliance. So where do the calm seas come in? Well, I'll talk about clarity first. So really, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. That was a paraphrase from Alice's Adventure in Wonderland. So it is the Simon Sinek, start with why, understand your drivers for change, what lies ahead, know where you're starting from, and making sure that you're doing that with the business, the as is. And then being business driven, not just technology project, justifying your case for change, and then selecting who your right partners is. So in the current environment, we worked closely with the global controller. So we understood the impact of SOX on our business and on our project. We then managed to bring in early and regular meetings with both our internal and external audit partners. It's really important to get that clarity up front so you're not then bringing them in too late to understand where their heads are really at with this. I'll talk about the key objectives that we've tried to bring in through the project and what lies ahead. And then another key factor was aligning expectations so that we could make a justified case to bring in additional skills if we didn't have them within the current business team. And finally, we did look to bring in the expert partners. So supplier selection of the key options was an absolute key part of our clarity pillar. So this was the starting blocks. Some of the things we've covered during this year have been around the development of risk and control matrices, so the RACMs, for both the business process side and the GITCs, the general IT controls. We've looked to also include, with the help of our experts, what could be done with SAP configuration to help automate some of those controls within the system. So that can add into the RACMs and we have a smarter way of doing things. And then a huge part has been around segregation of duties and having compliant user roles and user access. We've implemented SAP access controls. We'll talk about that. And then also the emergency access management and firefighter. And then we've also had to work with internal audit and external audit. So it's been a busy work stream in its own right. And you can see some of the breakdown of the different resources involved. And it's quite easy when you start an S4 project to think that actually compliance is someone else's job, or it's over to finance about SOX. Actually, it's got to be ingrained in the whole project from an S4 project management point of view as well. Control, and really this is around owning it. You can't delegate responsibility to your system integrator. As a business, you own this. You've got to establish and maintain control and steer your own ship. Understand what the methodologies are, ensuring quality and compliance, controlling changes in decision making, and then proactively identifying and managing risk. So where we are is all about owning the compliance aspect. You can't outsource that to the responsibility for compliance. It has to be inherent in the project, and it has to be a mindset of compliance in what you're trying to do as a holistic team. So manage it as a critical work stream alongside the main implementation project. And that's what we've been doing here, where we've split down the work stream into the various resources. We've got finance teams that are involved and key interest in business controls and reports, key reports. We've got IT that are heavily involved with the GITCs, firefighter access controls, SODs, the interfaces, the SAP config and automated controls. And then the PMO, we sit in the middle and we're orchestrating these layers from the project governance, the plans, the go live approvals, the data migration aspects, the testing and the training. So you can see that it really is a work stream. It's always a project within a project. So treat this as a program with a dedicated controls or compliance aspect. And then competence. So we said it at the beginning, availability is not a skill. So I think actually it's come from many project managers, but I think historically it was actually the sales guy, Colin Hennis, who originally sold SAP to us in my previous company, that would use this a lot. And it's absolutely true. So you put the right people in the right place. You appoint an exceptional sponsor, a team leader, not just a PM. You dedicate resource for change, and you ensure everyone understands their role and responsibilities, and you empower them. And then you proactively manage performance and change things. So if it's not working, you swap people out, and you do that proactively. You clear misunderstanding. So one of our technology leaders believed that this system integrator would be involved in ensuring segregation of duties compliant roles, and that SAP would have best practice roles that were already compliant. We know they're not, and we had to bring in the experts. So we've worked, with Turnkey, and it's been a real fantastic experience working with them, bringing in that right knowledge of skills we needed to add those to our project. So we've covered clarity, we've covered control, competence, and the last one I want to cover here is the collaboration, because Charles Darwin had said, in the long history of humankind, it's those who have learned to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. So this is all about making sure that all your team understand what their membership, their role clarity, the rules of the game are. You kick off together, you develop trust, and you continually celebrate success. You create those shared goals and objectives like you've seen earlier on for that work stream. And then you develop synergistic problem solving, and you break down silos. You manage conflict, and you encourage that healthy challenge or that healthy tension in projects. And then we're all used to this now, but you understand and exploit agile and virtual ways of working. So it's been busy bringing together and working in harmony all of these different aspects that we talked about, from our finance teams, our operations people, through to the system integrator, our third-party experts, and our internal and external auditors. And we developed those relationships and that report across time zones from West and East Coast America, India, and the UK. So it's been a real pleasure actually getting to know a lot of people during this. We have regular cross-party meetings that bring it together. We're currently in UAT, so it's busy, and we've been doing a very sort of rewarding agile security board of flexibility there to sort of jump on things. And it really is this key point, getting everyone on board and understanding so that they buy into what we're trying to do from a compliance aspect. So it doesn't feel like it's someone else's job. It's not just with finance. It actually has to be involved in what we're doing as a project. And I'll take you on the roles, design and segregation of duties journey. So this is just a tiny little fraction of some of those different objectives that you've seen. So this is starting off with our business process master list, which really has come out from the consultant partner, following all the requirements, the value stream mapping sessions early in the project. From that BPML, you go through and develop the business role matrix, or the specification of the roles required to do what's in that BPML. They've then built the roles in our dev system based on these specifications and documents. And then we've implemented GRC. We put in access control for SAP S4 HANA. We've also got the IAG implementation going in as well, so the Information Access Governance Bridge that will help us with some of our peripheral systems like Ariba. We then had Turnkey review the design of the roles. They analysed the inherent SODs that were in those master roles, and then following that, we worked together to actually incorporate those findings from the role review, from that design review, and from those SOD reviews to improve and iterate the roles. We then went on to build our user role mapping. So all our users for UAT, we started to put these basic roles into users and combining them, and then running SOD checks to see where we were. And we iterated and improved the design based on those real business conflicts and real business use from the GRC results. And this is where we are. We've developed our security board. We're working through on a daily basis on a flexible and agile and cross-party and cross-country approach. And so far, so good. It's working well, and the journey continues. I think the final takeaway on this role design and SODs, and I will thank Chris Hay at Turnkey, because I think he's taught me pretty well. From a project management point of view, this was really what hit home working with Chris was, the business and auditors really want to see, should the role be there, i.e. is it in the business process master list? If it should be there, has it been built? And if it has been built, has it been tested? And if it's been tested, has it been tested for the right steps? So this has been something that we've been quite happy to keep the consultants on their toes and make sure, is that UAT script correct, calling out that security role rather than that one? So yeah, it's been quite a journey and we're still going, but from a couple of projects now, both for listed businesses in the US, this has become such an important aspect of implementing SAP S4 HANA in listed businesses that it can't be ignored, and it can't be an also ran. It has to be inherent in your project and bringing it through. So thank you very much for listening to the Calm Seas of Business Change. Very much appreciate the opportunity to have presented to you today, and hopefully there was a couple of useful bits of information that I was able to share with you there.
Certainly, Dominic, thank you so much for the session. I've learned a lot from what you've shared from your experiences, and apart from that, I've also seen a number of projects not trying to embed organizational change or missing out the risk and compliance, because ERP implementations can be hectic and the SI may not be in the position to have that risk and compliance view. That's where Turnkey helps our clients to get ahead on the risk curve. So we have a few questions, and one of them which we're going to take is on the user resistance, because as a user, the way you operate is going to change. There might be some additional responsibilities coming in, or there might be some FTE reduction due to the automation that can come through as well. So based on your experience, how do you tackle user resistance?
Yeah, I think it's a really key point of this, because there potentially is changes, and there's certainly changes coming up in the organization I'm at, where some people will have been used to doing certain things. As we step forward and more tightly embed segregation of duties, they won't be doing anymore. A key part has been making sure that we've included key stakeholders from those functional areas in those management positions early on in the process. So for example, when we developed our rule set for our segregation of duties that was going to go into GRC, this wasn't just done with the project, with the consultant partner and with Turnkey. It was actually done in a few sessions where we brought in key managers from the areas so that they were able to understand what the GRC was about, what segregation of duties was about, and actually have them involved in making those decisions about what should happen, so that then they're not having change done to them, they're part of that change from the early stages. So they've been involved, and as we step forward and we're now in UAT, you get that broader user base involved. So we've tried to involve a lot of people during UAT and just really start to plant the seed and that communication about what the system does, what segregation of duties is. And a key aspect has been actually explaining to people what SOX is, or Sarbanes-Oxley, because a lot of people won't think about it. Your finance teams might know about it, but the rest of the business hears we need to be SOX compliant and thinks, what is that? So we have spent time in our kickoff meetings during each phase to actually introduce SOX, why it's there, some examples of what it was developed for, and then also what segregation of duties are, and giving some examples of the accounts payable process where you don't want to do two of these functions and so on. So it's very much been about education and communication and including those stakeholders early on and throughout.
Great. Thank you so much, Dominic. Definitely, business enablement is part of any change that we see, and having the constant communication, having the buy-in of the stakeholders, and starts with the right case for change that we're going to establish as part of the clarity pillar that you discussed earlier. And using those chain networks, having the right communication at the right time with the right people is key. Perfect. Thank you so much, Dominic. It's been a pleasure having you, and thank you so much for all the people who have joined our sessions. All the recordings will be available to you. And if you have any more questions for Dominic or me, feel free to drop an email to me. Have a lovely evening. Thanks again.